former Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan will not run for president. He says he wants to avoid a pileup in the GOP race for president that would end up benefiting Donald Trump. Joining me now is former Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's get straight to the news. Your friend and sort of fellow former Republican and fellow anti-Trump Republican, Larry Hogan, saying that he's not going to run. What's your response?
Well, Larry Hogan is a star. He's governed well in Maryland, elected in a blue state. I think the fact that he indicates he's going to continue to fight in the Republican Party for alternatives to Donald Trump and a new direction is a good sign. He did say he wanted to avoid a multi-car pileup. I got a kick out of that reference, and I actually think that more voices right now in opposition or providing an alternative to Donald Trump is the best thing in the right direction. So hats off to Larry for what he's done, what he's contributed. I'm glad he will continue to do so.
So you think more voices speaking out against Donald Trump is the right way to go. Are you going to run?
March is a message month. I want to continue to talk about having a consistent conservative message out there. We need to have alternatives, again, to Donald Trump. We don't need to be led by arrogance and revenge in the future. We need to be led by those that are problem solving, that want to stick with the principles of our party and unite us together. And so that's the message in March. April is a decision time. So we will stick with that plan.
I just want to ask you, what you just said was interesting, that you disagree with Larry Hogan on the notion of too many people being out there actually helps Donald Trump. Why is he wrong? I mean, that's exactly how Donald Trump became the nominee in 2016. He had so many people running against him. They split the vote and he ran away with it.
That's right. And we get this question a lot from donors and others, how can we avoid that? Well, this is not 2016. Donald Trump is a known quantity. He makes his message of revenge clear, and it's different. For example, the evangelical community. The evangelical community is going to be a key part of the race in 2024, both primary and general election. They were key in 16, but they're convinced that we need to have a different type of leadership in the future. It should not be someone that's going to appeal to the worst instincts of our country. And so in the early stages, multiple candidates that have an alternative vision to what the former president has is good for our party, good for the debate, good for the upcoming debate that will be in August. And so sure, that will narrow, and it'll probably narrow fairly quickly. We need to have a lot of self-evaluation as you go along, but I think more voices now that provide alternative messages and problem solving and ideas is good for our party.
Well, speaking of alternative messages to Donald Trump, let's talk about that right now, because he did speak at CPAC last night. He said he wouldn't even think about dropping out of the race if he was indicted on criminal charges. He also said this.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
What's your reaction to all of that?
Well, it's troubling. First of all, if you want to heal our land and unite our country together, you don't do it by appealing to the angry mob. And that's true whether you're talking about an angry mob from the left or the right. And so that's problematic. And that's where, again, you come back to the community of faith and what kind of leadership do we want? Whenever you're looking at toughness, you want that in reference to foreign policy and protecting the interests of the United States. But whenever you're looking at the leader of our country, you don't want him to be engaged in a personal vendetta. And when he talks about vengeance, he's talking about his personal vendettas, and that's not healthy for America. It's certainly not healthy for our party.
I want to just quickly ask about the pledge, the notion of you signing a pledge if you do run for president. The RNC chair told me on this program last week she's going to require it. Will you sign it?
Well, first of all, I think the goal of what the RNC is trying to do is to avoid a third-party candidate out there. And again, that would be the threat from Donald Trump. So the motivation is to keep Donald Trump, if he doesn't win the primary, from running as a third-party candidate, and I applaud that. And so if you're going to have a pledge, have it say that, that the candidates who participate in the debate are not going to run as a third-party candidate, and that would solve that issue. But beyond that, we've never had party loyalty oaths. We've never had those oaths. We did in 2016. They weren't effective. They weren't enforceable. You had candidates that participated in the debate and later didn't support the nominee of the party. And so I think we need to be real, and that's not helpful. But I do anticipate, if I'm a candidate, to participate in the debate. And I think that's very, very important that we talk about problem-solving ideas through that debate, and that's a good opportunity for America to meet and introduce themselves to the candidates on the GOP side.
But before I let you go, you talk about problem-solving ideas. I have to ask about the summit that you hosted on the border crisis and the notion of Republicans did control the House, the Senate, and they controlled the White House for a long time, and they didn't pass large border security plus immigration reform. Do you think that is really possible given the state of Washington? I know it's a lot to ask you in just a few seconds.
Well, the key thing there is that we've always tried before to pass border security with comprehensive immigration reform, and that's how it's been characterized. And so we can't get there initially. We have to do simply a straightforward border security bill. That should be able to get through Congress in a bipartisan way that puts more resources for the Border Patrol, for our immigration processing, for the security of our country. And so let's do a border security bill first. That should be done now, and that's where we stop. That's where we start, and that builds faith with the American public that we can have more comprehensive reform once we secure the border itself.